Hello and welcome to the third tutorial in our Excel 2013 introduction course. This tutorial rather, follows on from the last one where you can see I've kept the same spreadsheet we had open before. I'm going to do some formatting to start off with, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take a tour of some of the options and buttons and menus and things around Excel so you can get an idea of what they can be used for. But first of all, let's look at some formatting. So as you can see on the screen, I have open the worksheet that we did in the previous tutorial. I've added a couple of small items here which display the formula that was used to create those averages. So you can see they were used in different ways to create the same data. More on that later, but that's just there for your reference. So you know what you've got a reference of what I typed to get there, so you've got it as an example. Moving on from that, some formatting options. So one of the most common thing you'll do in terms of formatting will be things like setting up the text where you want it and things like that. And the most obvious ways of doing those are things like using bold, italicizing or underlining. And these are available just to these buttons up here. So you've got bold here, italic there, underline there. So if you have the cell selected where you've got the text you want to play with, you can make it bold, you can make it underline, you can underline it, you can take the underline out. You can see you can use any combination of these three. There are further options in there, but just for the purpose of getting it used to formatting a text, those are the three main ways of doing it. Quite common when you've got a table like this, you might want the title to spread across the whole width of the table, so to speak. Now there are a couple of ways of doing that. The first and more common way, what a lot of people do, is they select the cells they want it to be centered across and then click this button here, merge in the center. And if we do that, it does work. And these 5 cells here become one. That's fine, but when you get into more complicated spreadsheets, cell references get a problem, and if you have merged cells all over the place, these can really create a problem for you. So the recommended way of doing it, if I just undo that, so as with any other Windows application that you may have encountered, to undo is to simply Control Z, or you also have up here in the top left, undo merge cells. So I'll do that, it'll take it back to how it was. The other way of getting the same effects, but keeping all of these 5 cells present in case you need to reference them for any reason, is you can right click them, go to Format Cells, go to Alignment, and in here in the horizontal you'll see Center across the selection. And if I click that and then click OK, you see it's done the same thing, but each of these are still separate cells where it has the same effect. The other thing you may want to do is adjust the size of the text, and much like a word processor that you might have used, Excel has a similar kind of option, so you can select your text, which is actually here, and you've got the first way you can do it is you can change the up and down font size. So quite often you want to make that bigger, you can make it smaller through those options. You can actually select the font size, you can highlight over them. The nice thing about this is it will give you a live view of what it looks like before you select it. So you can just hover over each of these and you can adjust the size you want and then just click to keep it, which will undo that. And the other thing you can do is to change the actual font, and this is much like you would in Word or other word processors. You click here and you see a list of the fonts that are available. So let's go with, oh well, that looks quite nice, doesn't it? We'll go with that one. Maybe take the bold off it. There we go. So those are your most commonly used sort of text formatting options. What you may also want to do if you have a simple spreadsheet like this is to do some formatting in terms of highlighting certain areas. So you may say, actually, my biggest expense in here was that month, so I want, if I'm going to show it to somebody, I just want to make it obvious. So I'm going to click that button there. You can see it highlighted, much like a highlighter pen would on a piece of paper, except you can change the colour. So you can choose any of the Windows palette colours that you want. Yeah, nice orange there if you particularly wanted to. And there are ways of automating that, which we come on to a lot later in the course. But for now, just know that you can do it that way. And if you want to undo it, it's quite simple. You can just go to No Fill. Similarly, if you have a lot of that to do, you can go there, and there's More Colours option, and this brings you up the wider colour palette, and then you can even go to Custom, and you can choose from all of that. but that's really getting to many thousands of colours, which you probably don't need unless you have a lot of lines that need segregating from each other. So we'll cancel out of that. The other more common way you might do some formatting is if you have a table like this, you might want to set it apart from anything else you may have on the page. And the way you can do that is to use the borders. So if I select my table here actually and do that, and if I want just a simple border around the whole thing, I can go to this option here, click down, and you see there's a lot of options in here. And if I go to thick box border, it literally does put a little box around it to make it clear for me. What I'm also want to do is later on show you how to remove these grid lines, but for now they're quite useful, so I'm going to leave those there. The other thing you want to do is to actually segregate the individual cells. So you can do that with an all borders, but you can see that it does it to every single cell, which you may not want. So you have to play with those options to a certain degree, and you notice also it's taken away our thick box border because it's treated this as just wanting an all border as well. So if you want the thick box border back, you literally just go and do that operation again. There we go. So that's a quick section on how you can do some very simple formatting with an Excel. There are many other options in there which we're going to come on to later, particularly when we get in the world of graphics and charts and things like that. So don't fret yet. But the other thing I wanted to do is to try and demystify or de-scare in some ways the world of Excel, because I'm very conscious that to a lot of newcomers there are so many options in here. It can look scary, or it could look overcomplicated, or just not necessary for what they want to do. And in some users' cases that will be true. Anyone who's using a kind of a Google Apps background will notice they have, when they go to their Google world, they have a lot less options than this. And that's not to say that Google Apps is any less good or less powerful. It just presents things in a different way. There are many more functions within Excel over things like Google or OpenOffice, although OpenOffice is catching up. But what we're going to do now is just go through what you see on the screen and what a lot of these things mean, so it's more familiar with you, so that when we get into the next sort of tutorials about doing things, you know what these options are, you know what they mean, and why we're using them. So actually, unlike other tutorials that I've seen in the past, I'm not going to start in the top left. I'm actually going to start in the bottom. So if you follow my cursor here, right down here, you'll see there's a ready. Ready is to do with macro and programming, which we're not going to get onto in this entire course, apart from maybe a little bit at the end. So you don't have to worry about that at all. Indeed, if you see there, it says no macros are currently recording, so fine, I'm not doing anything with that. Now we scroll along further to the right, I've got 3 views. So this is the view that you will normally see when you use Excel. This one is the page layout, so if I click that, it shows you what it will actually look like if they were printed to a certain degree. And if I click on that one, that's the reading layout, which gives you a total view of how it appears. And this depends on what page formatting you've got in for your printer setting and things like that. So I wouldn't worry about this one too much for now, because that gets into a world of setting up printers, which we're going to come on to a lot later. So if we stick with the normal view for now, you can see that. Now you can see once you've been to this page view and come back, it leaves these extra dotted lines in. And that's just to give you an indication of where page borders are, in case you ever want to go back. It's minorly irritating to me, but other users like it. Take what you will of that. Moving on to the bottom right here, we have some zoom options. So you can see this whole area here is all about visibility and what you can see. This lets you zoom in and out of your page. This doesn't affect what would be printed if you did send it to a printer. This just affects how it's visible on your screen. You see here you've got 100%, which shows it's on the standard setting. You can click that and you can choose any other magnification you want, even a custom one. Just type a number in. You have a plus button here, so if I click that, it starts to zoom me in. And you can see as I do so, the percentage here changes upwards. And conversely, if I choose zoom out, it takes me back and I can go further out as well. Similarly, and also I can use this indicator as a slider, and I can do it like this. So you can see there's many different ways of changing your view there. Let me just take that back to 100%. So there you go. Those are the view options. So moving up from that, just beneath here, what we've got, Sheet 1. So what you can have in Excel is a many number of separate worksheets in the same Excel document which we call a workbook. More on that later, but if I say if you want to add more, you can just click on this Move Sheet button and it will create another one. And if I want to get rid of it, I can just right click and choose delete. You'll find many options with Excel are best and most easily accessed through right clicking of the mouse rather than finding the option buried in a menu somewhere. Things like adding and removing worksheets, I do not know of a way of actually doing through a menu, and this is a key combination to do it. But again, that's a quick way of getting there rather than going through the menus. So that's all those are. When you have more than one sheet, these triangles become visible at the bottom left, which let you pan through them. So if I do create a new worksheet and another one, I can then go back through them there. That's what they're for. These are scroll bars, much like you'd see in many other applications, just to let you scroll around what you have. They are relative to what you have in your worksheet. So you notice it's not letting me scroll far at the minute. I can only go a little bit outside of what I've already got on the screen. But if I took my cell reference and went far right and put something in there, you'll notice now the available scrolling has changed horizontally because it knows it's got a bigger document to deal with. So that's just something to be aware of, is that if ever you see that you've got a small scroll bar in the scroll window, you might want to check that's not something all the way at the other end that you need to look at. And the same goes for the vertical ones. The next bit is something we have touched on very briefly beforehand, and that is these references up here. So these are the columns that Excel creates in an alphabetical order for your cells. On the left hand side you've got the rows. So obviously the rows just go up in numerical order and they just go on and on and on ad infinitum. Similarly the letters do as well, so the columns do as well. If I go right back here, you can see once it gets to Z in the alphabet, it then goes AA, AB, AC, etc. And then when it gets to the combination of those it's used up, it then adds another letter on the end, so you get AAA, BBB, etc. So that's what those are for. Now some of the other options here, what I'm going to cover in this tutorial is just what's in this Home tab. You'll see there are these other tabs in Excel. I'm going to go through those as we go through certain options through the other tutorials. So I'm going to leave most of those for now. I just want to cover what's the key items that are in here really. Now you may find that what you have on your screen is slightly different to what I have. That's because I've done some fiddling with this and changed things, for which, and you'll see how to do it later on. All these are customizable. What is visible here is changeable to your preference. So you might find what we show you how in the next few courses, tutorials rather, that you want to do that. But for now, stick with what you have. So clipboard. So anyone who's used to using any kind of Windows application or Mac application will know about copying and pasting. And Excel is no different, except it has many other functions in terms of pasting. So if I want to take this number 20, for instance, I want to copy it, I can choose copy. I want to paste it there, and I can choose paste. I'll do that. But you did see there, if I do that again, if I click this, these are all my other different paste options. These mean many different things depending on what you've got selected, and we'll cover some of those later on, but for suffice for the moment, you've got the copy and paste. Similarly, you've got cut. So if I want to take that, I can cut it and paste that there, and you can see it removes it. So cut and paste and copy just as in any other application, and they use the same keyboard shortcuts you might be used to. So Control C for copy, Control X for cut, Control V for paste. Format Painter we'll come on to on another tutorial a bit later. It's a very handy tool, we'll come to that. A lot of these we've already covered, so these are the fonts, sort of text-based tools, and setting up your cells where you want them. One thing I didn't touch on earlier was how to change the colour of your actual text. So if I just show you that now, if I click on budget here, and that's what this option here in the bottom right of this section does, that lets you change the colour. And again, just like the highlight option earlier, you can choose any colour in the Windows colour palette that you want. To the right of that, you've got all the alignment options. So we've already done motion center and then de-done it, so to speak, when we did the title for the table. Wrap text is a useful feature. So let's just have some text here. The traditional old typist favourite, which is the quick brown fox. You can see what the problem is already. Jumped over the lazy block. So just a standard typist bit of text there, but you can see it spreads over several cells. And you might want to, you might have text coming or data coming down in a column from here, for instance. So the way to solve that, if you do click on it and then click wrap text, it does this, and it makes the text literally jump from line to line to line in the same cell. Now you can adjust how it does that because these cells are adjustable. So if I click on, put my cursor there, you see the cursor changes to that double arrow in the line. If I click and hold on that, I can expand it, and you can see then that changes the amount of wrapping that goes on. But what it doesn't do is then realign the total amount of height that uses up. The simple solution to that is if you take your cursor again, and in a similar way, you could simply resize it yourself, or you can highlight over there and double click. There we go. And similarly, this will sort. If I did that and then that, you see how it resizes. But if I then bring it back in size, it can't do it because you fixed manually the height of this row. If I double click in there, it sorts that out for me. There we go. So there's some other options in here. So there's some alignment options you'd probably see in word processors. So center my text, right align my text, left align my text. And in the event where we've got here, where we've got wrapped text, and it's using white space above it, you can change how it aligns vertically as well as horizontally. So I can highlight it, I can align at the top, in the middle, or at the bottom. And in most cases, when you've got this kind of extended box going on for your cell text, I'd recommend for formatting and just visibility purposes, you stick within the middle, because that seems to be the most eye-friendly option. Other options in here, you've got these here. This is the orientation, so you don't have to have just horizontal text. You can make it go at any angle. I click on that, I can say angle it counterclockwise, and it does that. And this is something you can just play with. You can open up your Excel and just play with it, put some text in, make it vertical. It doesn't look very nice. You could rotate it down so you can make it right in a vertical way like that. Similarly, if I right click the cell and go format cells, I've got the ability to actually put it at any angle I want there. You can see how I can just change this and do that there. Let's say minus 27 degrees, there we go. And it has to do it like that. Obviously it has to overflow, so you need to be careful about how you do this, but that's the way you do that. Number, we'll come on to this section later because that affects how you do with actual numbers and whether you're dealing with things like fractions and percentages and things like that. Conditional formatting and these styles we're going to come into later, and these elements also have separate section later on in the course. So that's your quick tour of Excel. We will go through a lot of other options in future tutorials, so in what's in the insert, the page layout, formulas, data, review. There's a lot to cover in here, which if we spent going through each in turn, we wouldn't actually get to do anything with Excel itself. We'd just be looking at options. So a lot of the rest is going to be covered in actually doing things with Excel later on. Anyway, that's it for this tutorial. Join us in the next one where we're going to look at some key terms in Excel, such as what the cells, ranges, tables, charts, and all that stuff means. And we'll see you there. Thank you.